Hello freedom seekers, Jeremy Chambers, Independence Acres Homestead. We're out here this evening sharing with you 5 meat rabbit myths. So if you've spent any time on the internet, there are all kinds of myths floating out there about how to raise and take care of meat rabbits, or just rabbits in general. And we're going to go over 5 of those today. And the only reason I chose 5 is because, well, 5's just, it's a good number, right? We're going to start with that. We might have a follow-up video with more, but let's start with just the 5. So the first one that you're going to hear pretty common, pretty often, this is just an old wives' tale. It's not actually a myth, it's just an old wives' tale. And that is that you should not touch the baby rabbits.
Oh my gosh, don't touch the babies!
I know, everybody's heard it, right? You're outside playing, mowing, working in the yard, whatever, and you come across a nest of wild baby rabbits. And you want to get in there and you want to touch them and you want to love on them and you want to cuddle them because they're like just the cutest thing ever, right? And your grandma comes running out the door. Don't touch the babies. The mom will smell you on them and she'll leave them and she'll kill them. Whatever. All kinds of different ways this has been told. Well, maybe with wild rabbits, but even then, it's very few in the cases of where that's happened. But with domestic rabbits, like the ones that we raise for meat, that's not going to happen, folks. Mama knows what you smell like. You have been feeding her, watering her, petting her, hopefully trimming her nails, maybe helping brushing out some of her molting fur. She knows what you smell like. The last thing she's going to do is assume that you are a predator. And if she does, you need to get that rabbit out of your rabbitry. Because usually it's not that they're going to abandon their young. If they feel that there's a predator around, usually they pee on the nest, they actually eat the babies. There's a lot of things that happen, but they don't just abandon the nest. It appears that they may have abandoned the nest only because the moms are only in there 1, maybe 2 times a day. Usually in the evening, after you've already fed them, in the morning before you get out there and do morning chores. So sometimes you might never see the mom nursing them, but she's not going to abandon them. As a matter of fact, we encourage those who raise meat rabbits, as soon as you see those babies born, get your hands in there, dig around, get rid of any that didn't make it, clean the nest out. Touch them, make sure they got all their feet, their ears, make sure there's no wounds on them from mom over cleaning them. There's a lot that you should be doing that requires you to touch the babies. So go ahead, touch the babies. Mama doesn't care. All right, the second thing that's a pretty common misconception when it comes to rabbits that we're going to cover, and that is that rabbits must have hay.
How about I just go eat some hay?
There's actually only one time in a rabbit's life where they have to have hay. And even then, it could be straw or other fibrous material. And that is when the moms are making the nests for the babies. That's really the only time that they need hay. Other than that, if you're feeding a complete commercially made pellet, it is a complete pellet. That's it. They don't need anything else. The hay's good to have around in case you have issues with some GI stasis or you have some issues with diarrhea and you need to increase their fiber load, but it's not necessary. It's not required. Sometimes it's actually more of a waste to put hay in your cages because the rabbits are just going to drag it around, jump on it, smash it through the bottom of the cages. Hay is not actually necessary. All right, misconception number 3. Kind of a myth, but there is some truth in this one. And that is that rabbits have to have things to chew on. You know, we're told because they are of a member, or once classified as a member of the rodent family, they need stuff to chew on in order to keep their teeth from getting too big. Well, the fact of the matter is that if they don't have anything to chew on, their teeth should be just fine, because just the action of chewing their regular food back and forth, right, that motion is going to be enough to keep their teeth down. If you have issues with your rabbit's teeth growing erratic, not getting worn down just from their normal consumption of food, now you actually have a genetic problem called malocclusion. And that is something you do not want in your rabbitry. So if you think that you have to have things for your rabbits to chew on, it's actually not necessary. The only reason why you might want to include something in their cage or their hutch for them to chew on is just to help get rid of that boredom so that they don't chew on things that you don't want them chewing on. But it's actually not necessary. It's not required for good dental health. So if you are going to put things in your rabbit's hutch or cage to chew on, what should you put in there? Well, we recommend pine cones, pine tree, pine wood, right? You can use apple wood, pear wood, most of your fruit-bearing trees, as long as it is not one that has a stone, such as peaches or plums, because those have arsenic. Other than that, a chunk of 2x4, as long as it's not a piece of treated lumber. All right, and that brings us to misconception or myth number 4, and that's that rabbits are social animals. I know a lot of people are going to push back on this one, but let's be completely honest. Let's look at the facts. What we see as meat rabbits, or any domestic rabbit here in the United States, is not a native rabbit. It is a European rabbit. More specifically, they came from the Iberian Peninsula, more than likely. And these rabbits have been living in cages and hutches for over 600 years. They've been raised in these conditions. And so to say, oh, they're social animals and we need to create an environment that is more natural for them to live in. This is it, guys. Hutches and cages. This is natural for meat rabbits. They are domestic rabbits. They have been domesticated. That means they have been, selectively bred over time to have the temperament and everything that they need to be raised in this situation. Now, when we look at some other ways in which people have chosen to house their rabbits, we've talked about this before, colonies, they might seem like it's natural, but that's natural for a wild rabbit. That's not natural for a meat rabbit, a domestic breed rabbit. And so I have no problem with people who choose to raise in colonies, but you have to understand that you are assigning to them something that is natural that actually is not natural for them. You're assigning them something that is natural for a wild rabbit to live on the ground, to live, in burrows and in colonies like that, but you're not assigning what is natural to a domestic rabbit. This is what they were selectively bred over hundreds of years to live in and live in successfully. And while we're talking about rabbit living conditions, let's kind of go into myth number 4.5. We'll call this one myth 4.5, 4.5, right? And that's that you need to do everything you can to keep your rabbits cool in the summer. And let me just say something. While I agree we should do everything we can in order to keep the animals that we care for healthy and well, we should not be artificially creating a climate or an environment for them to survive in. As a matter of fact, we need to be breeding for the areas that we live in. If you live in a hot, warm, humid climate, you should be breeding for rabbits that can survive in a hot, warm, humid climate. You should not be breeding for rabbits that need air conditioning. You are doing a disservice to yourself, you're doing a disservice to the rabbits, and you're doing a disservice to anybody that you're going to sell breeding stock to in the future. Please do not air condition your rabbits if you are in the deep south. Find stock that will survive and thrive in those conditions. And the same thing goes for those of you who live in the Great White North like us. Make sure you breed your rabbits for those that will survive in the conditions you live in. The last thing you need to be doing is heating a structure in the middle of winter in order to make sure your rabbits, your breeding stock anyway, are surviving. Now with the babies, that might be a little bit of a different situation, but for the adults, it should not be a concern. If you have to heat your structure, you might want to look at getting a little bit more robust breeding stock. All right, guys, and now it's time for myth number 5. Right? 4.5. Yeah, 5. Yep. Myth number 5. And that is that only certain rabbits are meat rabbits. We've covered this before, guys. Come on. All rabbits are meat rabbits. Let's take a look. This one here, meat. This one, meat. This one, definitely meat. This one, meat. This one, maybe a little less meat. How about this one? Still meat. Meat, 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 meat. Guys, all rabbits are meat rabbits. Just make sure you find a breed that matches your situation. Don't get and raise 10-pound rabbits if you only need 1 pound of meat. for your meals. And don't raise 1 pound rabbits if you need 10 pounds of meat for a meal. Find a rabbit that matches your situation. Find a rabbit that's going to have good growth, good body structure. Find a rabbit that has good temperament and good mothering abilities, and go and breed them. Well, that wraps it up. Hopefully you learned a little something, and if not, hopefully we were at least entertaining. Really appreciate you joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, God bless.